Marissa Ellison never imagined that the perfect facade of suburban bliss could conceal a nightmare. It began on an unusually warm autumn evening, when the sun sank behind rows of identical houses, and the quiet whispers of the neighborhood carried secrets darker than the lengthening shadows. Marissa had moved to Bellamy Heights a year ago with her husband, Daniel, lured by promises of community and comfort. Their charming two-story home with its neatly trimmed hedges and freshly painted porch belied the tension that simmered beneath. Daniel's easy smile and reassurances had once calmed her restless mind, but as months passed, subtle changes unsettled her. Long, unexplained absences, hushed phone calls, and a growing distance in his eyes that no shared laugh or quiet dinner could mend. One crisp evening, after returning from a late shift at the local bookstore, Marissa discovered the front door ajar. The house was too still, a suffocating silence that clung to every corner. "Daniel," she called softly, her voice echoing against empty rooms. As she moved through the hallway, her heart pounded louder, a frantic rhythm against the oppressive quiet. In the living room, a single note lay on the coffee table, a note written in Daniel's meticulous hand. "I need to disappear for a while. Trust me, I'll come back soon." There was no explanation, no hint of urgency, just an unsettling promise of return. That night, insomnia was her only companion. Marissa lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past year. The note, the distance in Daniel's eyes, the furtive glances when he thought she wasn't looking. Somewhere within her stirred a dark dread, a sensation that the truth was far more sinister than she dared admit. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel's absence stretched on, each day deepening the mystery. Neighbors offered polite condolences and quiet glances as if sharing a secret. Marissa's calls to his office went unanswered, and even his closest friends offered only vague reassurances. The police took her statement, filed a report, and promised to look into the matter. But as the investigation unfolded, more questions emerged than answers. In the weeks following his disappearance, Marissa discovered hidden fragments of Daniel's double life. Buried under piles of old photographs in the attic, she found a journal, one that Daniel had kept meticulously secret. Its pages detailed a spiraling descent into paranoia, with entries marked by frantic handwriting and chilling sketches of figures lurking in the dark. He wrote of voices that whispered from the walls and of a shadowy figure that visited him in the dead of night. One entry in particular sent shivers down her spine. "I see her in every mirror. The reflection that isn't mine, a woman who wants what I have. I must be cautious." Confused and terrified, Marissa confronted memories of their earlier days together. Daniel had often seemed distracted, his eyes shifting away whenever she mentioned marriage or trust. Had she missed the signs? Was this journal a confession of guilt or a delusion born of stress? Every unanswered question bred a new terror. Daniel's descent, it seemed, had been gradual, and now she was left piecing together his cryptic warnings like fragments of a macabre puzzle. As the autumn deepened, the once pleasant atmosphere of Bellamy Heights grew oppressive. Neighbors spoke in hushed tones about strange lights in Daniel's home during the night, and some even claimed to have heard whispered arguments emanating from behind locked doors. Marissa found herself shunned at community events, as if the disappearance of her husband had stained her presence. The isolation gnawed at her, making every creak in the house and every sigh of the wind a harbinger of doom. One night, determined to uncover the truth, Marissa returned to the attic to reread the journal. In the dim light of a single bulb, she traced her fingers over Daniel's hurried script. His words were like incantations, each line summoning a ghost from the past. And then she saw it, a final entry written in a hand that trembled with desperation. "I am haunted by a reflection, a mirror image that beckons me to surrender. I fear that in the silence of night she will consume me, leaving only emptiness behind." That night, sleep evaded her entirely. Every shadow in the hallway seemed to twist into a sinister form. Every reflection in the mirror hinted at a presence not her own. In the small hours, as the clock ticked relentlessly toward dawn, Marissa could swear she heard faint footsteps echoing in the hallway outside her bedroom. She dismissed it as her mind playing tricks, a lingering effect of Daniel's disappearance and the disturbing contents of his journal. But as the days passed, the line between reality and nightmare blurred. Marissa began to see a figure in mirrors, a pale woman with eyes too knowing, always just at the periphery of her vision. At first she believed it to be grief hallucinations born of isolation and terror. But then the sightings grew more frequent and vivid. One afternoon as she washed dishes, she caught a glimpse of the woman's reflection in the window. The woman's lips curled into a sad smile before vanishing like smoke. Haunted by these appearances, Marissa started noticing more inexplicable occurrences. Doors would be found ajar in the mornings, even though she was meticulous about locking them at night. Objects moved from their usual places. A vase on the mantel would be on the stairs by dawn, a picture frame tilted at a peculiar angle. It was as if an unseen presence was reordering her life, silently mocking her attempts to maintain control. Desperate for answers, she reached out to a local historian who specialized in the town's legends. The old man listened intently, his eyes narrowing as he recalled tales of a mysterious woman known as the Mirror. According to local lore, in the late 1800s, a young woman had been wronged and betrayed by the man she loved. In a fit of despair, she had taken her own life, her spirit forever trapped within every reflective surface in the town. Some believed she sought retribution. Others thought she simply longed to be remembered. The historian's voice dropped to a whisper as he said, "They say she appears when a soul is on the brink of despair, a mirror image of their deepest fears." Marissa's skin prickled as the pieces fell into place. Could Daniel's journal have been influenced by such a legend? Had his torment been the work of something otherworldly, a spectral doppelganger feeding on his insecurities and despair? And worse yet, was it now turning its attention to her? The transformation in Bellamy Heights was subtle but undeniable. Neighbors grew increasingly secretive, and the pleasant chatter that once filled the streets gave way to cautious glances and murmured warnings. Marissa began to experience vivid nightmares, where the pale woman in the mirror would stand behind her, her eyes gleaming with a mix of sorrow and malice. In these dreams, the woman would mimic Marissa's every move, a twisted reflection that echoed her deepest self-doubt. The nightmares left her gasping for breath, as if the cold grip of death were reaching out to claim her soul. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows and the wind howled through the trees, Marissa resolved to confront the entity that had invaded her life. Armed with Daniel's journal and a determination born of despair, she locked herself in the attic, a place filled with the relics of their past. In the flickering light of a single candle, she read aloud from the journal, her voice trembling as she recited the words that spoke of guilt, fear, and an unseen presence. "I am haunted by a reflection, a mirror image that beckons me to surrender." The words seemed to echo back at her, not as a memory but as a summons. At that moment, the candle flickered violently, and in the mirror hanging in the far corner of the attic, the pale woman appeared. She was more vivid than ever, her eyes filled with a profound sorrow that sent shivers down Marissa's spine. For a long, agonizing minute, the two women stared at each other, the silence between them heavy with unspoken accusations. Then, as if in a trance, the apparition spoke in a voice that resonated with both anger and grief.
"He belonged to me."
Marissa's heart thundered in her chest. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" she managed to whisper, her voice barely audible over the storm raging outside. The ghostly figure's smile deepened into something sinister.
"He chose to vanish, leaving me alone in the reflection of his promises. Now I seek what was stolen from me."
The mirror shimmered with a malevolent light, and Marissa realized with dawning horror that the presence was not merely a figment of local legend, it was an insidious force that had entwined itself with Daniel's fate, and now it threatened her as well. Desperation lent Marissa strength. She scrambled for Daniel's journal, flipping frantically through pages filled with desperate scribbles and cryptic warnings. The final entries were the most disturbing, a rapid, almost indecipherable scrawl that recounted Daniel's final struggle against the unseen force. In a burst of clarity she read, "The mirror takes what I love. I must hide, but its reflection is everywhere. It whispers that my true self is never enough." Tears streamed down her face as she realized the horrifying truth. The reflection had been preying on Daniel, slowly consuming him until he was forced to vanish into the shadows. And now it was turning its attention to her. The storm outside seemed to intensify, as if mirroring the tumult in her heart. The attic grew colder, the candle's flame flickering as though battling an invisible wind. The ghost moved closer, its ethereal hand reaching out toward Marissa. In a moment of desperate resolve, she clutched the journal to her chest and stepped toward the mirror. "I won't let you have him," she declared, her voice echoing with defiance. "Or me." In that instant, the attic erupted in chaos. The mirror's surface roiled like water, and the spectral woman lunged forward with an unearthly scream that shook the very foundations of the house. The room blurred into a vortex of shadow and light as Marissa felt herself being pulled into the depths of the reflection. For what felt like an eternity, she was suspended in a realm between life and death, a twilight world where every mirror revealed a twisted, distorted version of reality. In this strange dimension, Marissa encountered fragments of her own past, memories of laughter, moments of tenderness, and the deep, abiding love she once shared with Daniel. But they were all marred by an undercurrent of betrayal and regret. Amidst these reflections, the spectral woman hovered, a constant reminder of a love that had been tainted by envy and sorrow.
"He was never truly yours,"
the apparition intoned, her voice a haunting blend of longing and rage. "You are just a shadow, a reflection of a man who left me behind." Terror and determination warred within Marissa. She recalled Daniel's final words, his desperate attempts to resist the consuming darkness. With every ounce of strength, she reached out, focusing on the love they once shared. In a moment of clarity, she realized that the reflection was not merely a malevolent force, but a manifestation of deep-seated grief and abandonment, a specter born from the broken promises of a love gone awry. Summoning all her courage, Marissa confronted the figure. "I know your pain," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. "But Daniel loved me, and I will not let you claim him. I am more than a shadow. I am the living, breathing hope that defies despair." The words hung in the spectral realm, a fragile beacon of defiance against the all-consuming dark. For a heartbeat, time stood still. Then the mirror shattered in a cascade of glittering shards, each piece reflecting a different facet of their intertwined fates. The spectral woman let out one final, mournful wail as her form dissipated into the fractured light. Slowly, Marissa found herself being drawn back to the attic, the chaotic vortex subsiding into an eerie stillness. When she finally opened her eyes, dawn was breaking, soft light filtering through the attic's small window. The mirror was gone, only a few broken pieces lay scattered on the floor, each fragment a reminder of the night's ordeal. Marissa sank to her knees, trembling with a mixture of relief and sorrow. She knew that Daniel's fate remained shrouded in mystery. Had he truly vanished, or had he been consumed by the same darkness that nearly claimed her? The unanswered questions would haunt her for the rest of her life. In the following days, Bellamy Heights slowly returned to a semblance of normality, though the atmosphere was forever altered. Neighbors exchanged sympathetic glances and whispered about the strange occurrences that had plagued the town. Marissa, now a reluctant guardian of a secret far darker than any suburban rumor, struggled to piece together her shattered reality. Daniel's disappearance remained unresolved, his fate a grim puzzle that she would spend the rest of her days trying to solve. Yet in the quiet moments before sleep, when the world was still and vulnerable, Marissa would catch a fleeting glimpse of something in the mirror, a flash of pale skin, eyes that held the sorrow of a forgotten past. And she would shudder, knowing that the horror was never truly gone, that the whispers of the reflection would forever echo in the silent corridors of her mind. As months turned into years, the memory of that stormy night remained etched in Marissa's soul. She continued to live in Bellamy Heights, the house now a constant reminder of the darkness lurking just beyond the surface of everyday life. Every creak of the floorboard, every fleeting shadow in the mirror, was a reminder that some horrors refuse to be banished, that some reflections are forever stained by the past. And so, in the twilight between memory and madness, Marissa found a grim solace in the knowledge that love, even when marred by betrayal and loss, could be a beacon against the encroaching dark. For in confronting the horror that had consumed Daniel, she had discovered an inner strength, a determination to face the nightmares that lurked in every mirror, in every whispered secret of the night. The horror of that fateful night had changed her, and though the shadows might always beckon, she had learned to stand against them, a lone figure in a house haunted by memories and mirrors. In the end, the mystery of Daniel's disappearance and the spectral presence in the mirrors remained an enigma, a whispered legend that wove itself into the fabric of Bellamy Heights. And as the town continued its quiet, unassuming existence, those who dared to look too closely in their reflections sometimes swore they saw, just for a moment, the face of a woman who had once been consumed by a love turned monstrous. A reminder that some reflections never truly fade away. The horror of that autumn, the unyielding terror of a love betrayed by its own reflection, lingered long after the storm had passed. In the silence of the night, Marissa would often wonder, was it merely a trick of the mind, or had she truly glimpsed into a world where love and horror danced a twisted waltz? The broken shards of the mirror remained as a silent testament to that night, a relic of the past, a cautionary symbol that some secrets, once unveiled, can never be forgotten. And as the seasons changed, the whispers in the wind carried the promise of another dark chapter, a reminder that the line between reality and nightmare is as fragile as a shattered mirror, forever reflecting the ghosts of our past. In the end, the truth lay hidden behind layers of deception and grief, a truth as elusive as the man she once loved, and as horrifying as the reflection that would forever haunt the quiet corridors of her home. Marissa's story, woven with threads of horror and despair, became one more legend in Bellamy Heights, a whispered caution to those who dared to trust the mirror's seductive lies, and a reminder that sometimes, the darkest horror lies not in what we see, but in what we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves.
That's it for tonight's tale. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Be sure to stay tuned for even more nerve-thrilling horror stories every single week. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at the Hollow Horror. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, stay safe. Or stay scared. See you next time.